dress up a wonder of life. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born in the vapor of your breath. The planets burn. If the stars were made to worship, so alive, I can see your heart in everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so alive, so alive. God of your promise, don't speak in vain, a syllable empty hope. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. Whoa, and as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature so alive, I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you so.
If you're watching with us, we want to welcome you, and we ask you that you join us as we sing to The Lion and the Lamb.
worship you, Jesus. We praise your name, Lord. We declare and we believe, Lord, that every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that you are Lord, that you are God. And today, Jesus, we declare that you are great, God, that you are awesome, and that there's no one like you. So we worship you with all of our hearts. We just love you, Jesus.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the
We believe, great are you, Lord. And that's what today we are here gathered to declare. Today is the day of the Lord. And great are you, Lord. There is reason for me to connect with your presence today. There's reason for me to make time in my schedule, to make time in my agenda, to make time to talk to you and hear a word that refreshes my soul, because I need this. I need this. I need to hear from you, oh God. We need to hear from you, oh God. It is you who changes everything. It is you who turns the difficult situation into something that is bearable. For you walk with us. For you stand by our sides. Great are you, Lord. We give you thanks. Welcome. It's a little bit of a strange setting for me to be at the church, and it's completely empty, and I'm talking to you through this method. But thank you for making time to hear what God has to say and what he wants to say to us today. And thank you for allowing me to share what's in my heart with you today. And I'm calling this moment, this message, for such a time as this: the desire and power to fulfill God's purpose. And I'm going to walk you through why I picked, or why I gave it that title. Let's focus first on for such a time as this. And this comes from the story in the Bible of Esther, who was the queen at the time. And she was in a key position to be able to do something that would save a lot of people. It was going to save the Jews. And Mordecai, who was her relative, told her, you need to remember that maybe you're in this position where you're at right now because there's something you need to do, because it was important, because it was imperative, because it was your purpose, your destiny. It was God's purpose that you needed to fulfill. So he aligned things so that you would stand and be in the kingdom, in the palace, and to be the queen for that moment, for that time, so that when the time came, she would be able to speak and she would be able to fulfill God's purpose. So the story of Esther, she started as an orphan girl and went on to become the queen at that time. Started from the bottom, now we're up. If you didn't get that, I'm sorry. And if you're too holy for it, I'm sorry too. And Esther was chosen among many women to be the queen of that time. And God gave her grace, God gave her favor, and God aligned things for that moment because he had a purpose for her life. We have a purpose for our lives, just like Esther, because her God is also our God. The God that she followed, the God that she served, the God she believed in is our God as well. And Mordecai told her this phrase, this line that stood out to me. And Esther 4:14, it says, and who knows, this is Mordecai speaking to Esther. He's telling her, and who knows but that you have come to this position, that you have come to be queen, that you have come to be a person that the king might listen to, that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. But who knows that for such a time as this, God has prepared or aligned things for your life, for you to speak up in the right moment, for you to do the things that he has called you to do. And Mordecai told Esther, and if you keep quiet at a time like this where you can save the lives of the Jews, the lives of your people, he told her, deliverance for the Jews might arise from a different place. So don't you think that God's purpose is not going to come to pass. It will. You're just not going to be part of it. Deliverance will come some other way. Let me translate that for you. This is God telling you, if you don't do the things that you need to do, someone else will do them. Because God's purpose will come to pass. That's the version that applies to us right now. So let me ask you, I'm going to ask you to reflect on that. What is God asking you to do during this time? And let's ask ourselves another question. What is it that we need? What is needed to be able to fulfill God's purpose for such a time as this? What is needed? And this is where I started reflecting on this verse that for weeks I just been spending time in my quiet time and with God on this one verse. It's Philippians 2:13. And I'm going to read it to you in 3 different versions. The first one, NIV, it says, "For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose." It is God who's working in you. It is God who's working in me so that I will act, so I will do the things in order for his purpose to come to pass. It is not my will. It is God, the one who works in us. Another version, the Message, it says, and this is Paul talking to the people from that city in Philippians. He's saying, be energetic in your life of salvation. This is what he's telling them. He's reminding them. He's writing them a letter. And he says, be energetic in your life of salvation, reverent and sensitive before God. That energy is God's energy, an energy deep within you. It is God himself willing and working at what will give him the most pleasure. It is God working and willing inside of you to accomplish his good pleasure. Deep within you, he's going to give you what you need so that you will not fail in this task that he has assigned you. Because he didn't call you to fail. He didn't call Esther so that she would fail. He didn't give her this task so that she would fail. And this is the promise, that he's going to will and work in you to help you accomplish that. And the last version, and this is the one that I've been spending time, it says, it's in the New Living Translation, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. And those 2 words stood out to me, desire and power. Because these are 2 things that a lot of the time we struggle with. We struggle with our desire, and we struggle with our source or where we get our power, our energy, when we are looking for it outside of God. When you are looking for your desire, for your passion, for what drives you outside of God, you struggle. And you will most definitely not fulfill his purpose, because you are not pulling from the source, the right source, that is God. For it is God who is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. Desire and power. You are in positions just like Esther. And it may not be royal, but it is a position in your home, at work, within your family, within your friends, within your community, within your circles. You have a position, you have a role. There's a time that you are called to do something in those circles. And you have a certain level of authority, of leadership, of ownership, an assignment in those places that are unique to you. And he reminds you that he gives you the desire and the power to be able to fulfill what pleases him. And it happens to us a lot, where we are in the moments where the conditions are just not favorable, for the desire and the power to be in alignment for what God is calling us to do. And this quarantine could be a perfect example. Maybe the conditions are not favorable for you to do the things that God has told you that you need to do. So maybe you've struggled with your will during this time. Maybe you struggled with your desire, with your passion. Maybe you struggled with wanting to do the things or desiring and want to do the things that God is calling you to do. Maybe you're struggling with how you're using your time during this season, because maybe you were given time and you haven't been a good administrator of it. I know I've had moments where I have not. Don't ask me how many movies I've seen. Because if it's left up to us, would we choose to do the things that will please God? If it was completely left up to us, I think I can speak for myself that the evidence speaks for itself. There's moments where the answer is no. If it's left completely up to us, sometimes we don't do what pleases God. And I want to share this passage with you that it's in Luke. Because I was reflecting on this, and it reminded me and it showed me that Jesus left us the example of looking for God's will and receiving that power to be able to fulfill what God was calling Jesus to do with the assignment that Jesus had. It's in Luke 22. We're going to read from 39 to 46. This is where Jesus goes up to the Mount of Olives and he's praying. And it teaches us that Jesus looked for God's desire. So let's read it. Verse 39. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples followed him. On reaching that place, he told them, "Pray that you will not fall into temptation." Verse 41 says, he withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, knelt down and prayed. And this is what he prayed. He said, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Verse 43, an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Verse 45, when he rose from prayer, he went back to his disciples. He found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. And he asked them, "Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray so that you will not fall into temptation." He set the example for us here. He said, "Not my will, but yours be done." He aligned his desire with God's desire so that God's purpose would come to pass. He knew what was coming. That's why the Bible says that he was in anguish, sweating drops of blood, because he knew what was coming. The anticipation, the anxiety was creating something in his body. He knew what was coming. Sometimes we know the things that we have to face, the things we have to do are difficult, and that anticipation, that anxiety creates things in us, and it makes it difficult for us to want to do it on our own. But this is why he said, "Not my will, but yours be done." Psalm 48 says, "I delight to do your will, oh my God. Your law is within my heart." Oh my God, I delight to do your will. Your law is within my heart. That's what the psalmist said. In another Psalm 143:10, he said, "Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Teach me to do your will. Teach me." And that's a prayer that I have in my heart today. God, teach me to do your will. Teach me to say, not my will, but your will be done, just like Jesus did it in that moment. Even though it was difficult, even though the anxiety was the highest he's ever experienced it, even though we have those moments that it seems so difficult, Lord, aligned our desire to do your will. And when I was reading this passage, this story, for the first time, I stopped in verse 43, where it says that an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And it was in that moment I reflected and I said, in that moment that Jesus felt stressed out, overwhelmed, asking for this to be passed from him, God strengthened him. God showed up and strengthened him. The book of Matthew says that Jesus' soul was overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. That's how Matthew describes how Jesus felt in that moment. Overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. I don't know if you can relate or you feel like this in this moment, or you felt like that in moments in your life where you just felt overwhelmed. But God sent a divine intervention, a moment to strengthen him. But first he needed to align his heart. And then God provided the strength. Because God promised us to give us that strength. In Psalms 138 verse 3, the psalmist says, the moment I called out, you stepped in. The moment I called out, you stepped in. And you made my life large with strength. The moment I called out. Isaiah 41:10 says, this is God responding. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Surely I will help you. And these are the promises that God gives us, that he will give us the strength we need to be able to carry out the things, the assignments, the tasks that he has given us. Because he did it with Jesus. And even though Jesus felt overwhelmed in that moment, he had the strength he needed because he aligned his heart to the heart of the Father. And that's what we need to do. And in reading the story, I couldn't overlook the fact that the disciples were only a stone's throw away from Jesus. If you pick up a stone and you throw it, it's not going to land that very far. So that means it was relatively a short distance. They were not too far away from Jesus. I want to believe, and I interpret this, that maybe they could have seen Jesus, even though they were away from him. They could have seen him still praying. So I was reflecting on this moment where Jesus was strengthened. And all I could think was, the disciples missed it. The disciples were asleep. And they didn't see that moment where Jesus was divinely strengthened. Because they were asleep. The Bible says they were exhausted. Their eyes were heavy. That's what Matthew says. Their eyes were heavy. And Matthew says that Jesus came out 3 times. Came out to see them and found them asleep. So he came out the first time. He says, hey, didn't I tell you to pray? And he went back to pray. And then he came out a second time. And he found them asleep again. And then he went back to pray. And Matthew records that he came out a third time. And he found them asleep again. 3 times. He found them asleep. How many times have we missed the moment where God could divinely do something, divine intervention, because we are overwhelmed with our emotions? In that moment, they were overwhelmed with sleep. They were tired. Their body just didn't have the energy it needed to be able to hold out in that time, in that moment. So I was thinking, how many times have we missed God speaking to us, God showing up for us? How many times has he spoken and then he comes back to check up on us, and he realizes that we're not doing what he had told us to do? How many times in our lives have we done this? And I was seeing this example of the disciples, and I was thinking, man, they missed it. They missed that moment because they were overwhelmed with what they were feeling, what they were going through, and they didn't see the big picture. There are moments in our lives that God requires us to listen to what he's saying and act on it. And for us to not be like those disciples who fell asleep. And when Jesus came up to check up on them 3 times, he found them not doing the task that he had given them. Because there's moments in our lives that will require us to draw on God's desire. It will demand from us to be drawing from that well of his desire, of his strength, to be able to go through those days and fulfill that purpose that he has given us. So it's not surprising that we often end up in situations where we are physically, emotionally, we're just drained. We're just empty. And our desire is placed in the wrong place. And we don't have the desire to do the things required from us. It is no surprise we often end up in that place where we want to give up. We want to say enough is enough. Where we want to say, like Jesus said, if this could be passed from me, it is no surprise we often end up in that place. Because we don't take the time to align our heart and say and follow the example that Jesus left us, that your will be done, not my will. Oh, how I delight in doing and performing your will. We don't say like the psalmist said, teach me to do your will. Teach me to do your will. Let it be a law in my heart. We don't take the time to spend time in that place to set that right. So often, Jesus will find us asleep and dormant to his voice. We will not hear it. We will not pick up on it. We will not recognize it, that he's given us the assignment, that he's given us the task, that he said it more than once, that he keeps speaking, that he keeps reminding you, like he told the disciples, did I not tell you? Did I not tell you? So I want you to remember these 2 things from that story. God gives us instructions, just like he did with those disciples. He told them, stay here and pray. He will give us assignments. He will give us tasks, and we just have to hear. And let us not be like the disciples who force God to have to repeat himself. I was thinking that, like, I don't want to be a person that forces God to have to repeat himself, that has to come out and check up on me and see that I'm not doing what he asked me to do. Because maybe I am feeling the same way the disciples were feeling. But he already told me that he will strengthen me. He already told me, do not fear, do not be looking around anxiously, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I am your strength. So that's the first thing. I do not want to miss out on God's assignment, on his word, on the task he gives us. I don't want to miss out because my desire is not in the right place. And the second thing is, I do not want to miss those divine visitations of strength like the disciples missed it because they were asleep. Because God promised that He will give the strength. He promised that He will provide that power if you submit your will. So I choose to align my desire and draw from that power, because there is such a time like today. There's such a time like what we're living, that God has given us things to do. We have assignments. Just like Esther did in her moment, in her life, she was called to do something. She needed to go in front of the king and just speak up on behalf of her people. There's tasks and things that you need to do, that I need to do. And God maybe already told you, just like the disciples. Maybe He already said it once. Let's not be like the disciples that cause Him to have to repeat Himself. So it is time to go back to that source. It is time to go back to drawing from God Himself. Because you don't know what this time requires from you. So you need to go back to the source, the creator of that plan, the creator of that purpose, to give you and work in your desire, to work in your heart and align the things that need to be aligned. So where you are, I just want you to take a few moments and reflect on these things, and reflect on whether you have lived your life where your will and your power have been coming from the right source. What has been feeding your desire? What has been feeding your heart? What has been feeding your mind? Where are you putting your energies? Where are you investing your time? How are you using your time? During this time that you might have been given more time, it's in your hands. How have you been using it? And if Jesus were to come out and check up on you like He did with those disciples, how would He find you in this moment? Would He find you asleep? Or would He find you doing what He asked you to do? So God, today, thank You for checking my heart. Thank You for checking my desires. Thank You for checking the well that I've been drawing my source from, my energy, my power from, my strength. Thank You for bringing the light that we need to make adjustments, that we need to reconfigure, that we need to change and adjust the place from where my desire is flowing from. And I need to follow the example that Jesus set, where He said that it was Your will. Even if it causes us to go through those moments that He had to live. That moment of anxiety, that moment where it's stressful, that moment of uncertainty where you don't know what's going to happen next. Even if we have to go through those difficult, dark moments. But You provided, You promised strength. You promise You will provide what is needed so that Your will would be done. So You have not set us up to fail. And that's what I remind myself of today, and everyone who is listening to this, that God has not set you up to fail. He has not set you up to fail. He didn't give you your task so that He will leave you halfway, that you will be incomplete, that you will not make it to that finish line. As long as you align your desire and you pull your strength and your energy and your power from Him, the purpose will be done, because it is His good desire, His purpose that will give Him pleasure. it is God working in us. And I thank you, oh God, that you allow us to come and partner up with you in the tasks that you have for us. For such a time as this, may your power and your desire be drawn from the place, from the right source, because that is the only way you will not fail. That is the only way you will reach that place of fulfillment. Thank you, oh God. 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 Thank you for allowing us to take these moments to reflect. Let us be mindful in the things that we watch, in the things that we invest our time doing, in the people that we surround ourselves with, who we allow into our circles, who we allow to sow into us and pour into us, and who we associate ourselves with. And God also allow us to make changes in the way that we even administer our money. So I want to take this moment to transition into giving to God. The Bible says that we give out of gratitude, out of everything that He's been so good to us. And I want you to reflect during these weeks and see if God has not provided for you and your family. Has God not provided for you and your family? Has God not been there? Has He not been faithful? And out of that gratitude, the Bible teaches us to give to God. So there's 4 different ways that we have here at Revive to be able to give and sow our tithes and our offerings. So I want you to take that moment to, out of gratitude, give to God. Because He has been faithful. Because He has given you the strength. Because He has been with your family during this time. He has not left you without a home. He has not left you without food. He has not left you without clothing. He has not left you with the things that are necessary. Because the Bible teaches us that He's a good Father. And He provides and He takes care of us. So take this moment as I will also give my offering. You'll see the number on the screen. To be able to give through texting, it is really easy. I had already given my tithes on Friday when I got paid. But there's a difference between tithes and there's a difference between offerings. So I urge you that today, as you are checking how you are ministering your money, that you realize that God has been good to you. I want to remind you that we're here every Sunday at 3 p.m. having this service. And even though it's on a different setting, it's done differently, that we connect this way. I want you to remember how important it is to spend time, these 30 minutes, this 1 hour, to make time in your agenda to connect with God. And there's other ways. If you go through our social media accounts, you're going to see there's a lot of things that are happening throughout the week. And maybe they're not in your language. Maybe they're in Spanish. But there's a lot of things for the youth. There's things for the kids happening. We're finding a way to connect with you so that you may be able to have and be part of a community of people that believe in the stories and what the Bible teaches us to do, to be able to live a life fulfilling God's purpose. And before we dismiss, I just want to remind you that on Sundays today, between 4 to 6, we're going to be giving out food because our church provides for the needs of those who do not have enough. So we're giving out food from 4 to 6 p.m. And this is an opportunity where you can stop by. You can also give your tithes if you need to do through this method. So we'll be here between 4 to 6 to be able to help you, even pray with you if you need to. So we're going to get ready to dismiss. I'm gonna read this verse that I love, and I truly believe it every time that I recite it and I say it. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. I pray for peace during this week. May you realize that you are in a place where God has given you an assignment and a role in this time, in this season. And may you connect and go back to drawing from the right source. God bless you.
Caught up in your presence, I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do for me. I just want you. I'm sorry when I just gone through the motions. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm sorry when I've just come with my agenda. I'm sorry when I forgot that you're enough. Take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never want to leave. Oh, I'm not here for blessings, Lord. Jesus, you don't owe me anything more than anything that you can do for me, Lord. I just want you. I just want